I call to order the Finance, Administration, and Communications Committee of the Whole of the Redmond City Council. Today is May 14th, 2024, commencing at 4:30 p.m. Our usual presiding officer, Councilmember Fields, is not available for this meeting, so I will be chairing. Council President Kritzer. In attendance, we have Councilmember Stewart, Councilmember Salahuddin, Councilmember Nueva Camina, and Vice President Forsyth. And I believe I believe we're still waiting on Councilmember Anderson, and when she arrives, I will announce her. We are going to be pulling the last two items on the agenda due to some staff illness, and so hope that they feel better, and they'll be sending out to the council some updates via email and gathering council feedback on the items around the purchasing process overview, as well as input on some of the items around the budget process. So council members, look out for that. We've also had the request to move item number 4 to the first item on the agenda. Is there any objection from council members to reordering the agenda? Great. So we have 4 items on our agenda. The first item on the agenda, which is listed as number 4 for the viewing public, the Southeast Redmond Neighborhood Park WWRP grant resolution item, will be presented by our Parks and Recreation Director, Lorraine Hamilton. And before she begins, I want to recognize that Councilmember Anderson has joined us. Welcome. Director Hamilton.
Good afternoon. The item I'm bringing today is a resolution for City Council authorizing our application for the Washington Wildlife and Recreation Program grant in the amount of $500,000 to assist in funding the Southeast Redmond Neighborhood Park construction. This is a required step by the Recreation Conservation Office through Washington State, which is the funding agency, and they require that we have a resolution adopted by our governing body, in this case City Council, that will commit us to utilizing the funds if we are to be awarded them. RCO grants, Recreation Conservation Office grants, also come with requirements around the longevity and the dedication of the parks and lands that we have. And so it's just important for City Council to understand that when we accept the RCO funding in these types of situations, the usage of those parks can't really change. You can't build a community center on it, for example. It would remain a neighborhood park, but that would be the goal anyways. So that's what this item is. I do want to apologize real quick. We had a typo on the year. It is actually 2024 is the year that we're applying. And then the other piece is that we will be uploading the formal resolution after this meeting as well for the review of the council. But it is a copy paste of the example that was in the packet.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the council? Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you so much, Director Hamilton. Awesome to see us going after these WWRP dollars for this project. And if it were to be selected, we at the council would obviously be there next winter to make sure that we're asking the legislature for a well-funded WWRP. So we haven't talked about funding. We just passed the master plan a couple of weeks ago for Southeast Redmond Park. We haven't talked about the funding package. Would we essentially be considering this $500,000 or up to $500,000 kind of the first dollars in for the project?
Yes, and we do have a CIP business case in for this upcoming budget cycle, so council will see that in the very near future. It is a little out of order of how we normally do things, simply because this funding only comes around every other year. So if we don't apply this year, we then have to wait 2 more years. And with the hope to be able to get this project moving in pretty early in the next biennium, didn't want to lose out on this opportunity.
Absolutely, and I fully support that, especially given, for the residents of that neighborhood who were so involved in the process.
Absolutely.
Having milestones of progress markers, those can just be helpful for continuing to see the project go forward. So very much in support of this resolution. Thank you.
Other questions, comments from the council? I'm not seeing any. I will just echo that I appreciate the initiative on this since it has been a priority of our council. We have passed a really wonderful master plan, and I know are all excited to get into the details of how we actually build it. And I think also could be a compelling one for our state legislators to be able to support something like this, given that it's really filling a need in one of our neighborhoods that really needs some more of these facilities.
Absolutely.
So appreciate your work on this and bringing this to us. Are there any concerns? No, I'm trying to look to see when this
Consent
is.
the 21st.
The 21st, great. Are there any concerns to putting this on consent for the May 21st business meeting? Not seeing any, we'll send that to consent. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Great. The next item on the agenda is capacity increase for on-call groundwater monitoring, habitat monitoring, and water wastewater engineering services agreements. I believe we have Chris Stanger here, Deputy Director of Public Works, introducing the item.
Good evening, council members. Chris Stanger, Deputy Director of Public Works. I am joined tonight by Jessica Atkinson and Tom Hardy, Senior Environmental Scientist, and we are proposing Council Member 24231, which is a capacity increase for on-call groundwater monitoring, habitat monitoring, and water and wastewater engineering service agreements. We are asking the committee to approve increasing the capacity for 3 existing on-call agreements. The first is Landau Associates for $100,000 for groundwater monitoring. This increase will make up for vacant staff positions. Second is Herrera Environmental Consultants for $125,000. This will support the surface water monitoring program, gauge data support, and permit required monitoring work. The original capacity was also used unexpectedly on a project because of inadequate performance by another consultant, so we had to draw from this to get that work done. And then finally, BHC Consultants for $250,000 for water and wastewater engineering services. This will support sewer modeling, flow monitoring, and lift stations 52 and 53 pump replacement projects. The increase in capacity will allow work to continue through 2024, and Public Works will be advertising for new on-call contracts this fall that will start in January 2025. With council's approval, we'll expand the amount that can be charged against these agreements. Individual projects and programs have the budget in place to fund the work, and we are requesting this item to be on the June 4th, 2024 business meeting consent agenda, and we're standing by to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Are there questions from the council on this item? Council Vice President Forsyth?
Thank you. You'd mentioned that there's one staff person missing. Is that staff person looking to be replaced in the future?
Right now, we have a vacancy in the environmental programs, which we're recruiting for right now.
Okay, great. And then I think you answered this question that I had written down in your description. Is this a general broad scope for services, or is it focused on those projects that we already have in the CIP?
So I can answer for the Landau, which is the groundwater monitoring. It's a broad scope. However, we have very focused projects that we will use them for.
Okay, so it's a yes and. So it's
Yeah.
both. Okay, thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart?
Thank you. And a follow-up on those agreements. So these are, again, just for the public, these are 3 agreements that we're going to see expansions for on our consent agenda. And we didn't actually see the agreements that we've already approved once. We didn't have them in our packets for this time. Would we expect to see them again, though, with the adjusted amounts in our consent agenda packet?
We can provide that for you.
I think that would be helpful, just to remind ourselves and the viewing public who's following along. And thanks, since we already have the funds in your program budget to take care of these. Thanks for keeping the water clean and habitat safe. We appreciate your work.
Councilmember Salahuddin?
Yep, thank you. Just wanted to touch on the on-call contract with Herrera and that inadequate performance by the original consultant. Could you sort of walk us through that a little briefly, and then explain how we're anticipating to mitigate anything that could happen with that?
I have Tom Hardy online that may have some answers for you.
Hi there. I'm happy to answer your question or try and answer it. Uh, the inadequate performance by another consultant was on the 40th Street trunk line project. So it was expanding the stormwater pipe from the 520 Microsoft area and taking it down to the lake, and then monitoring that flow and the outfall and the potential impacts along the lake. And the previous consultant did not, they they were not monitoring correctly. And so in order to meet our permit requirements, we had to bring in Herrera kind of on a very quick pace. So we did not miss the monitoring requirements. And so that ended up, instead of taking it from the other consultant's project budget, we had to use the on-call capacity to pay for Herrera to take over that monitoring work.
Thank you.
Councilmember Nueva Camina.
Hi, Tom. Thanks for being here. A follow-up to that, and how is Herrera, now that we've brought Herrera online, how's that going?
So Herrera is doing a really good job. 40th Street is not my project. Curtis Nickerson manages that project, but everything I've heard from him, they have performed up to what we would expect a consultant to perform. They have in-house, they have scientists and hydrologists that can do that sort of work. So that's why we chose to use them to do the 40th Street monitoring kind of at the last minute.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Well, everyone asked a lot of my questions, so I'm good on this. Are there any concerns from council members putting this on the June 4th consent agenda? Seeing none, let's move that to consent. Thank you so much. Move on to our next item, which is item 2 on the agenda, the 2023 to 2024 BTIP project update. And I believe we have our Director of Technology and Information Services, Michael Marchand, here to present.
Good afternoon, council members. Mike Marchand, Chief Information Officer. I'm here today with Carmen Hall. She's the manager of the TIS Project Management Office, and she is here to provide you with an update on all the fantastic work we've done with our BTIP project portfolio. For our new council members, BTIP is our Business Technology Investment Program, and it is essentially the technology version of the CIP. And with that, I will hand it over to Carmen.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone's time today. Thanks for letting us come in and talk about some of the work the teams have been doing. Mike covered, I'm sorry, Director Marchand, we're a little informal in technology, covered the purpose of, or what BTIP projects are, these larger strategic or more complex projects. The Technology and Information Services PMO consists of 3 project managers that are assigned to help with these kinds of projects to make sure that they get the attention that they deserve with some of the complexity that they have. So I'm happy to be here today and give you an update as we start looking for the future in 2025-26. We thought we'd review how we did with our 23-24 plan. I've included 2 reference documents for the presentation today. One is a single slide with an overview of the project list, has also the current status and the outlook. Those are color-coded into separate categories, and I will share that, and we can use that as an anchor to go through this information. The second reference document you have are the expected outcomes and benefits of each project that were identified when they were approved during the last planning cycle. So, let me bring up please hold while this comes up. I don't know why it needs to load a presentation. All right. So this should match the slide that you have in your packet. What I'd like to do is start with an overview. There were 17 projects approved as part of the 2023-24 budget. 13 of them were approved for 23-24, and 4 were pre-approved for 25-26. I'd like to start with one of our projects that was canceled. This is the project on the top in pink, the Lucity barcoding project. Lucity is our asset management software, and there was a proof of concept that was done to see if barcoding some of our city assets would provide efficiencies when working with those assets. In the end, the project team didn't feel that it gave the value they expected, so we didn't move forward with continuing to do that work. In the completed section, this is our next section in blue, we completed 5 projects. 6, if we'll talk about number 6 here in a minute, since the approval of this plan. The first, the conference room updates. Over the last 2 years, we've updated 31 conference rooms across the city to Teams-enabled hardware. The feedback we've gotten from everyone is this very much is helping collaboration as teams are in a blended environment. We've heard really nothing but good things, so we're excited about that work. The second, the Parks and ActiveNet replacement, we did a conversion to SmartRec, which completed in December, and we soft launched through Q1. We did a full launch with the program for the spring and summer program registration, and this is a key public-facing system, not even a hiccup on the hardest days. So we were very happy that not only could we move this project forward, but it enabled us to service the public in really a forward-thinking way without having it be, it took the volume on that biggest day of the year. The Springbrook migration to the cloud completed in April, and we migrated our utility billing with no impacts to customer billing or customer service during that time. The next project, as part of that room's team modernization, we also completed a police training room upgrade in 2023. So this upgraded that room and gave them updated technology for some of our core staff. The last one in our blue category is case management for homeless outreach. This completed in 2023, and the new Apricot system has had over 300 records created by the City of Redmond and Kirkland outreach staff, and it's allowing for better and more efficient support and collaboration for those folks that they serve. Our next project, Dynamics 365 or D365, sort of straddles the line between complete and ongoing. The major launch of the project, phase 1 or BR1, you'll hear it called, Business Release 1, was completed in July of last year. It was a huge citywide effort, and overall the project was successful. We've transitioned that to ongoing support, catching up a few of the stragglers of things we saw at launch in our business solutions team in TIS. So that has been successfully transferred and is supported now within the city. We're also spinning up, as we go into our in-flight projects, we're spinning up what we call phase 2, which is some additional functionality. It's going to include vendor and contract management and some accounts payable and accounts receivable improvements. There's also a couple of integrations that we weren't able to do the first time. We currently are in requirements and planning, and we estimate that work to complete in 2026. Our next project, and probably our next, well, they're all large and important, is Workforce Management Phase 2. And this is going to introduce payroll functions and better integration between timekeeping and payroll. Workforce Management was completed a couple years ago with our move to UKG, so this will complete that work. Part of Workforce Management Phase 2 is also the introduction of the learning management system, which will help us all do training and better support across the city. Teams are currently in an evaluation period. This project has been going on long enough that there's been some improvements made in the software that we're targeting. So we're doing an evaluation to make sure that we are choosing the best solution based on those updates. We expect to validate that very soon, and our estimated completion date is 2025. Our capital investment program portfolio management tool is a very large project supporting Public Works and the CIP work that they do there. We've chosen the application, it's called Masterworks, and we're working through implementation contracts. This is expected to complete late 2025, early 2026. We're still in some of the final planning as we get through those contracts. Our Development Services Modernization Platform, or EnerGov. EnerGov is our permitting software, and teams are currently doing a proof of concept for simplifying the permitting processes, both in the city and to the end customer. We expect that proof of concept to complete by the end of this year, and once that's complete, we'll have a recommendation on how we move forward with permitting. One of the goals of the proof of concept is also to see if this permitting software can be expanded out of planning and be used as a citywide implementation somewhere across the city. We'll bring other departments in. So once this assessment is done, we'll know more about that. The line item for the Environmental Sustainability Platform is an ongoing fund for GIS and EDW to support new dashboards and data visualizations as more of those programs come online. So we're holding some money there to make sure that we continue to support those programs as we get those requests. Our AssetWorks data management, this is a project we were able to pull forward into 2025. It was originally targeted to start in pull forward into 2024. Project managers think way in the future. It originally was slated for 2025. And this is a cloud migration plus a launch of telemetrics, which will give us additional fleet information and fleet management. It's currently in planning. We estimate to complete that this year. And finally, almost finally in our in progress is the life cycle assessment tool. So this is an effort to measure the environmental impact of city processes and programs. And a major portion of this work that's remaining is within the public works space. So we're actually wrapping these requirements into the new CIP project to see if we can have one system that captures this at the same time we're capturing that capital information. That means that will deliver along with that program late 2025, early 2026. And then the last of our in-flight projects, and it's on yellow on your sheet, because those with eagle eyes will notice that everything is within budget or doesn't have a budget view yet because we're not quite there. And this one says watch. This is our Windows 10 replacement. So we're replacing all computers in the city, moving them, not replacing, we are moving them from Windows 10 to Windows 11, replacing the operating system. It's currently in flight. We have supplemental resources that are here to help. And based on the current burn rate and our estimate, the project may run a little long. We're looking at mitigation for both pulling that timeline in. There's some doing this much work over the course of this much time, there's a lot of people who need their computers all of the time. And so things take a little longer than perhaps we'd expected. But we're looking at mitigation for both pulling that timeline in so we don't have additional burn, and also where we might have some additional dollars in the budget that could help cover this. So we're not over, but we're keeping an eye on it because we're seeing the trends. And then finally, we have the projects that we expect to start in 2025, 2026. Council Chambers is getting an upgrade for their audio visual. We'll modernize the system in here and focus on better audio support and TV visual support. We should start this project next year in 2025. The EnerGov IVR, we actually pushed this one out a bit. We're going to wait to see what our analysis of EnerGov as a permitting system results in before we start upgrading the peripherals around it. So based on that outcome, we'll know the scheduling here. And then finally, in our to be done, the Lucity cloud migration. Again, this is our asset management software. We'll work with Public Works and the technology department to schedule this migration sometime over the next couple of years when it makes sense. So as I wrap up, I just want to acknowledge that none of these projects can be done without the expertise of city employees in all departments, particularly in the technology and information system space. Project managers are never successful in a vacuum. And we appreciate the dedication and work of all of the teams in these past couple of years, along with the support of City Council and executive leadership. And we look forward to continuing to deliver these programs as we go into the next biennium. So again, thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions I can.
Well, thank you so much for that presentation and for your hard work and the hard work of everyone in the TIS department on all these projects. It's really exciting to hear about. Councilmember Stewart.
Yes, thank you so much, Ms. Hall. Awesome to hear from you about how the work is moving forward. And I would be remiss not to give one more shout out to a member of your team. On the weekend that the Redmond Senior and Community Center opened, Ernie was one of the hardest working guys in town. Every time I was in the building, he was in the building, and each of those big screens is its own computer. And, anyway, there was the AV, a lot going on. So just a huge shout out to him as well. Thanks for this touch base on the BTIP. Really appreciate it. My question at moving forward, which is, it's great to hear you're thinking about the future too, is at the end of this biennium, the BTIP will have 2 years remaining. And so I just wanted to check in, is the program feeling right-sized? I know some of these projects have taken a lot of oxygen in the room now that you're kind of able to see the horizon a bit better. Does it feel like the work program is right-sized for the next couple of years?
I think so. As we look forward to coming into 25, 26 and what potentially can come on our plate, we've kept these ones in focus that we know are bleeding a little bit longer than we expected, and we sort of overlaid other things. A lot of the work on the next biennium is still in progress. We've submitted our recommendations. Some of it may look a little bit different, with a different focus on understanding some of these large projects differently before we get into them and investing a little bit of money to do some research first. I think that when we look at projects like D365 that have lasted a long time, they can be better served by a little more knowing before you go. So that's something that'll potentially look a little bit different and does help us both right size and I think project out a little bit farther in these technology programs. That's something that Director Cochran was asking us to do as we partnered with her team, is see how we can stretch this and not look in just 2-year increments, but even further and do a better roadmap for that kind of planning. So long way to say I hope so.
That's wonderful to hear. Thank you so much for sharing your insight. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Forsyth.
Thank you. You all have been just a little bit busy with all these projects, just a little. Just looking at the completed list, noticing that a lot of them have like $100,000 difference in budget or $50,000 or $70,000. Never a bad thing to see a budget difference, but I'm assuming those are recurring subscription fees moving forward, those differences?
I think some of the reason for the delta there is, in the past, the way we've done BTIP is it's been, just to be completely transparent, it's been a bit of a scramble as we get towards the budget season, where we're gathering a lot of information and trying to get estimates and quotes and put it together in one sort of short period of time. Moving forward, we're going to make this a more organic process so we can flush out these projects a little bit more before we get to budget season, and that way we can have more accurate estimates. For most of these, we tried to err on the side of asking for too much because it's going to be better to give back some money than to come back and ask for some more. But we're working hard to tighten that up going forward.
So it is safe to assume that those estimated spend through 2024 is the final number on these completed projects?
Those would be the one-time final numbers, and then there would be a separate dollar amount that we accounted for the ongoing license fees.
And that's not in the main budget number in this document?
I don't believe so. I don't believe the ongoing subscriptions is accounted for in that.
I'd be really sad if we're paying $100,000 in subscription fees.
Ongoing subscriptions are, the BTIP funding covers the implementation plus the first year of subscription. So for all of these, the annual subscription costs are covered for the biennium. So I don't know if I'm saying it clearly. On the completed projects, we've confirmed that all of those have been moved forward to operating budgets going forward.
Okay.
And so everything here that's completed should have no more ongoing costs coming out of this fund.
Okay, so you guys are in really good shape then for these ones, yes?
Yeah.
Great?
Yeah.
Yeah, knock on
Yes.
wood. I just jinxed it, but
Yes.
hopefully not. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nueva Camina?
Thank you both for the information, bringing it forward. As a newer council member, I found it very helpful to have the second amendment that gave a little bit of background to it. And looking at the numbers and seeing like how we're over, which was great, but also appreciating the yellow item that we have that, hey, it's not over budget and we're keeping an eye on it. Just so we know like, hey, this is heads up, this could be a little tricky. So I appreciate all of that. Thank you.
I'm not seeing other hands raised. I will follow up one question on Council Vice President Forsyth's question. Did the scope of any of the completed projects change from what we originally thought? Like, I'm curious with like the police training room technology. Did we do fewer screens or did we do something different, or did it just come in a lot less than we originally projected?
That one is an interesting project because it actually kicked off and a portion of it was funded with alternate source of funding. So the amount that came out of BTIP was that smaller amount, and the rest of the project was funded through alternate source of funds provided by police, public safety. So.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions on this? All right, well, I'll ask one final question, which is, I believe last budget cycle, you had come with the BTIP, or I don't remember if you, yeah, I think it was you, who came to talk about BTIP when we were looking at CIP at our mid-year review. Is that also slated for us to see it before actually seeing it in the budget, or will we get another preview on the upcoming BTIP?
For what we're planning for the upcoming BTIP. I'd have to double check with Director Cochran on what the calendar schedule looks like. I'm not 100% sure.
Great. Well, I will check in with her on that and we can let the council know. But I thought that was great when we were kind of talking about both CIP and then also technology investments early on. So we got a good idea of them, but great to be able to look at what we have in the pipeline. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
If there are no other questions, we'll move on to the next item. Thank you. The next and final item on our agenda is 2024 City Council outreach activities. And Derek Wing, our communications manager for the city, will be presenting. Mr. Wing, go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. Appreciate the chance to speak with you all today. It's really nice to be here. My name is Derek Wing. I work in the city's communications department, and part of my job is to uncover outreach opportunities that can bring you closer to your constituents, city staff, and each other in some more informal settings outside of council chambers. To that end, I'd like to present a few events coming up this summer and beyond that you might be interested in. The first one is Derby Days. That's happening on Friday and Saturday, July 12th and 13th. And I know that in the past you have had council booths or a council booth. I have talked with Council President Kritzer and Vice President Forsyth, and one idea that we have thought about is potentially having a council table with staff on the porch and have council members be prepared to speak about one or more of your priorities. Such as sustainability, public safety, permanent supportive housing, and light rail. And some of the pros are from this location, you can refer people to other tables with subject matter experts present. You can be among the staff and the community. You can hand out information or business cards, and you could also set council times from like 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., for example. And so this would not be an all-day affair for you if that is of a concern. Another idea for Derby Days includes council participating in the Derby Days parade together. That would be from 11 a.m. to noon with a check-in at about 10 or 10:30 on Saturday, July 13th. And some of the pros for that, once again, it's a time management issue, but it also shows togetherness as a council. You can include family members, and it's a fun and festive atmosphere. The second event that I wanted to highlight was National Night Out, which is the first Tuesday in August. That's August 6th this year. Redmond Police will be taking the lead on signing up neighborhoods for us, so more to come on that, but just for your information. The third is the Downtown Redmond Art Walk, slated for Thursday, September 19th. I know that in a chat that I had with Vice President Kritzer, we talked about potentially having a coloring book, a 10-foot by 10-foot banner with paint and markers that the community could then draw things on, and once finished, could be hung in the new Redmond Senior and Community Center. Lastly, some town hall style conversations with the community, dates to be determined. I think this is based on conversations that you might have had in the past about small community conversations. An idea would be to consider potentially an outdoor council meeting, or at least a meet and greet before a council meeting, possibly at a different location like downtown park, so where you could meet and greet constituents and then hold the meeting inside or somewhere else. Another idea is to have a conversation in a room or a school gym with table rounds. Again, small conversations with community members, could be informal, and also having subject matter experts, directors on hand. So if there are questions that are asked that you can't answer, you can just refer them to the SMEs. These events are just a few examples of ways to showcase your commitment to the city while giving people a chance to meet you, get to know you a little bit better, and learn more about your service to the community. So please take some time to consider these opportunities and let me know if there are other ones that you are interested in or can think of. And with that, just thank you for your time and open to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wing. I think since we are bringing up some of these ideas, and I know that in talking with you, some of these pieces we do want input on to make sure there's enough council members interested in order to have our staff plan some of this. I think we might want to just go through on a couple of these and get some thumbs up from council members to get a sense of whether there's enough interest. So let's start with Derby Days, and also questions and ideas that folks can jump in on. Since we have a little bit of time here, I think we can get into some discussion, since this has been something that we've talked about as well at our council retreat and wanting to dig in on. So I guess first would be feedback and interest in doing the council booth idea with staff. And I know there's been some discussion of also inviting our commissioners to join us as part of that work as well. Thumbs up interest in being able to join that, as well as any questions or ideas. Councilmember Stewart, go ahead.
Sorry, could we, can I offer a couple of...
Let's do suggestions and then we'll do thumbs. That sounds great. Go ahead.
Just to provide some feedback to what I heard. So I love the idea of mixing up the booth format into something. The porch was so well used by community planning and development last year in order to have their Redmond 2050 kind of open house. So I would want to be absolutely sure that we are the best use of the porch, you know what I mean? But I love mixing that up, and I'm really in favor. You know, it is the weekend, it is a signature event. If staff would like to participate, that's one thing, you know, asking, you know, anyway, just being sensitive to staff time. But I'm very much in favor, because it was so great last year to involve the commissions that we did involve. And so I to your point, Derek, about like Team Redmond's spirit, I think that the commissioners inform so many of the policy decisions we get to make here. So to have an opportunity to be present with them and in community at the same time, that's something I'm very much in favor of and thinking a lot about this year. And as far as inviting our family to the parade, that's an interesting idea. I definitely think mixing up our parades sometimes. We've ruled out riding our own bikes. We've not ruled out scooters, potentially. Anyway, just making it a little more fun for the council, whether that's with our families or our commissioners. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Councilmember Salahuddin.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of this. I'll probably make a comment on all of the items, but really appreciate you know, the opportunity to table. I think in addition to having you know, really potentially in-depth conversations with community members involving commissioners and or any staff that are joining, if there are opportunities for, you know, some fun items that, you know, we can have some games at the booths, things that we can really enjoy the weekend. And you know, if folks don't want to talk business but want to just enjoy a game with the council, or we have an opportunity to do that. And then also, I am all for the parade, all for inviting family as well.
Great. Other comments, questions on this? Councilmember Nueva Camina?
So still coming up to speed. Okay, so I just learned that we cannot have our own bikes. Scooters are still on the table. Are roller skates an option? I'm just asking. Roller skates an option?
I love the ideas here. I actually was going to add that I feel like I think some sort of music as we I know when we have had the parade before, that when we were near the band it felt very festive, and then the band marched away from us, and so I thought even if we had some little kazoos or some sort of other music, it might be kind of fun for our part of the parade. But I also love the idea of marching with families or kind of having Team Redmond all together.
Right.
Council Vice President Forsyth.
Thanks. Yeah, I love the kind of thought that's coming out of this as council members on whatever alternate mode of transportation representing in the parade, whether it be scooter, bike, if you want to. I might not, because clipping in and falling over would be very embarrassing. Roller skates, any alternate mode of transportation, I think could be a really fun way for council to represent this year with families and, including all of that. So I like what's coming out of this conversation. I will apologize to you, Derek. I do owe you that information on the coloring wall.
Yeah.
Have been a bit slammed with stuff right now, but I will get that information to you as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Great. Well, it sounds like there's a lot of interest in council participation in Derby Days, and maybe you can take some of these ideas and we'll come back and we can have another item at council talk time to just hone in on specifically the Derby Days parade plans and booth plans as we get a little bit more, but hopefully you can take a little bit of those ideas and we can touch base on that. I think the second one was National Night Out.
Correct.
And for the new council members, just, you may know this, but typically council members are invited to attend multiple gatherings throughout the night. And so if you're interested, we can get assigned to go to a couple different places, and you'll get kind of your schedule for the night to go and represent the city along with our public safety staff that shows up. So I guess this one, maybe I will do a set of thumbs in terms of interest in participating in that. Are council members interested? Seeing nods, some thumbs. Yeah, Councilmember Nueva Camina?
Interested, just need to verify travel dates.
Great, okay, cool. Councilmember Stewart?
I apologize. I will be unavailable this year due to a family commitment that is out of my control.
Oh, well, that's.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, and we can have, typically, we'll have someone from the police department will reach out to be able to coordinate that. So as they get into that, they can reach out, but it does sound like there's some council interest in that. The next item was the
Downtown Art Walk.
Art Walk, yeah. I guess I will just open that one up in terms of any feedback or interest, and that's a little bit further off, so I know people will probably have to check their schedules. But are there any comments on that? Seeing some thumbs up here. Okay, great. So I think we can probably program that as well. And that's a shorter event too, so in terms of the time slots, if we wanted to divide up at a table with the council, I know in previous years, I think it was just a couple hours, so shouldn't be huge time commitments, but really a fun one. And then I think lastly was the town halls and community events. Are there comments on this as well? Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. I like the suggestions that were offered, Derek. Thanks so much for bringing this back, and for council. I think there's been, we've been having talk recently about how we might do this. So I'm very much in favor of continuing to pursue this. One thought that I've had over the past couple of months is, not just a one-time, but maybe something if we were to do with some regularity, that perhaps one way we could organize ourselves would be around themes. So maybe it's a theme like the conversations this month are about housing, and in a few months, I was really inspired by our awesome staff who came a few months ago to talk about everything we do to monitor clean drinking water. And that's a legit issue that a lot of folks have questions and stuff about. So I just wondered about the possibility of organizing around themes, if that's helpful at all to the group.
Councilmember Salahuddin?
Yeah, I really appreciate what Councilmember Stewart brought up. Outside of just themes, wanting to echo the cadence and having something that's not just one-off, and even in the beginning, before we even plan the first one, having it set so that we have forecasted in the future, so that folks know that this is something that we're committed to. I'm excited about these potential conversations, and now that we have the Redmond Senior and Community Center as well, just opportunities across different parts of the city would be really nice.
That's a great idea. And maybe, yeah, framing it as a series so that people know when they go to one, what's the next one coming up if they want to have that opportunity. That's a great idea. Other thoughts, Councilmember Nueva Camina?
Thank you. Mr. Wing, I know that we do a phenomenal job with our respect, equity, inclusion, diversity, and looking at when we're doing our town halls, having a very strong communication that we want to include all of our residents, regardless of age, regardless of socioeconomic status, regardless of even legal status. Like, if you are a resident of Redmond, that we want to hear from you.
Absolutely. That's a great idea.
Other comments on this? I know Council Vice President Forsyth and I have been talking about this behind the scenes, so it's great to get the feedback from the rest of council. And I think on this, we've been discussing it for a while, and now that we've gotten this feedback, I think we'll try to follow up and come back with a more tangible plan that you all can react to, hopefully bring it forward again at council talk time. But do you have, Mr. Wing, do you have any other suggestions in terms of the process going forward for looking at in particular, doing some of that planning on this topic?
No, I mean, I think that hearing the enthusiasm is really exciting, and so I think that maybe the next steps are for myself and Lisa Maher to touch base with council members and sort of solidify the plan.
Great. And then I'd note that the last thing that we've been discussing, since this sounds like a lot all at once, but I know there's always a lot of enthusiasm. And in particular, I know I've heard from multiple council members about how there's so many events that are planned that aren't city events, but are, other types of events, like, for example, like Redmond Pride or the United Festival or Ananda Mela that are privately planned but are in our public city spaces, and where there may be some tabling that's going on, especially by some of our city staff. And so one of the things that I've talked about with Mr. Wing was potentially just providing council with a list of all the upcoming events and opportunities for public engagement, and that just amongst our council that we might organize to know if anyone's planning to go to those events in case we wanted to do. I know as part of our council retreat, we talked about what kind of just wanting to have a presence and communicate with each other about that. So we'd know at least, one council member is going to one of these events or showing up. So that's just something where Mr. Wing is has provided us actually with a pretty comprehensive list that I'll share out with the council of a bunch of events that'll be happening throughout the summer that council members can participate in should you want to. And if there's interest in kind of more formalizing that, then we can go deeper on that in terms of council member signups, but we thought just for now, like, to pick a couple of these key events for us to officially table at, and then have the opportunity potentially for council members to jump in and join in. So just wanted to throw that out there as another option. So feel free to provide feedback on that idea if you're just wishing you had even more events to go to and even more opportunities to engage. Councilmember Stewart.
Well, thanks so much. I think something since the last retreat, especially where we were talking about this and maybe having a shared calendar, or, we don't want to create extra work for anyone, but like on the events where Deidre has sent us a calendar hold, we don't have like operating rules around that yet or anything, but something that occurred to me that's already built in is like, if I knew I was going to go, I could respond yes. And then folks could use the schedule assistant in Outlook to just see like, okay, Melissa has committed that she's going. If Melissa's tentative, she may or may not be there. If she's declined it, she's probably not in town or something like that, right? So it is just a piece of data that can communicate that we might consider integrating more formally into our practice. But again, always lots of opportunities to be in community.
That's a great idea, and we do have Deidre, I see here in the audience. I think we'll definitely be working with her to make sure that council members can kind of have those communications. I think maybe in addition to calendar events, which are helpful to know kind of what those RSVPs look like, and it is helpful to see what others are doing, and if we're going to have like a quorum or something, so we can notice if needed, is also to have like an easy kind of schedule list going through the end of the year. So I as council president, I can commit to trying to pull that together and hopefully working with Deidre and Derek on that to be able to just have that. I've been trying to kind of, in the short run, tell you a couple of the events coming a few weeks out, but realized maybe it's helpful to have the full year to look out at as we do our planning. And I will note, actually, I'm just looking at the list that you sent me. As we were talking about Derby Days, one other thing to flag for new council members is that we also will have the opportunity to help the Firefighters Benevolent Fund at their pancake breakfast that happens. And that's a really fun part of Derby Days as well that I always really enjoy. Although I don't know how to make Mickey Mouse pancakes like some of the firefighters do. So still learning. Council Vice President Forsyth.
Yeah, thank you. So the calendaring thing is one thing that we'd been trying to do over the past couple of years, and we had heard feedback that they weren't getting used. I know you use them, I use them. I'm pretty sure Vanessa uses them. So I think I just wanted to open the conversation to get folks' commitment. If we do have Deirdre start putting events on our calendar, that we will be responsive and reacting to those and saying, you're tentative, you're not going, just so that we can prove to executive team that it's worth the time to have that thing done. So, thanks.
Thanks for that point. I think that's helpful. Any other comments, ideas? Okay, well, it sounds like we got a lot of good feedback, and we can follow up to bring a little bit more tangible pieces. I'm also looking at Deidre back there too, so we'll probably be following up with you as well. Thank you all for your input, and just appreciate this council's enthusiasm for engaging with our community. Looking forward to a great spring, summer, fall. And thank you, Mr. Wing, for all the work that you're doing and your help on this.
Well, thank you very much. And I have to say that seeing you all at all these different openings is really, really inspiring, especially, with all of you as a group. I think that the theme that we're talking about today is togetherness and collaboration. And that's sort of emblematic of the entire city. And so just to be able to see all of you at like the bridge openings, the 2-line opening, the RS and CC opening, it's really, really nice to see. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And I believe that brings us to the end of our agenda. If there's nothing for good of the order, this meeting is adjourned.